Hello class, today we're going to go over our mineral rights and leasing section in our book. This is going to be page 75 through 101. I know some of you had some questions about this, and it is a chapter that doesn't have a lot of meat in it, but it's some real important things in here we need to know. So let me see if I can give it to you in a nutshell. So here's the video I told you I would do. In most countries of the world, all the mineral rights and resources belong to the government. And this includes the rocks and minerals, oil and gas, and anything else that they find to be a mineral in the earth that they deem important. And the organizations or individuals in those countries cannot legally get the oil and gas out of the ground and sell it without first being authorized by the government to do so. And in the United States, a few other countries' ownership of the minerals and resources was originally granted to individuals and organizations that own the surface. So the surface rights and mineral rights are different. The surface rights mean that everything that's on top of the earth, and the mineral rights are everything that's below the ground. So when you have rights to the minerals and the surface, everything on above the ground and a little bit in the sky and below the ground, this is a complete and private ownership, and it's known as fee simple ownership. It's complete. It's the most basic type of ownership, and the owner controls the surface and the subsurface and the air above the property and everything below it. So the owner also has the freedom to sell it, to lease it, to gift it, to what's bequest means to leave it for an inheritance or an endowment for somebody. So that's the most basic type. That's what you really want. Now, your surface rights versus your mineral rights. Now, what qualifies as a mineral is anything that's under the ground. I guess you could say metals, coal, oil, natural gas, gemstones, dimension stones, construction, aggregate, salt. Anything that can be extracted from the ground really is considered to be minerals. It's kind of hard to say what a mineral is, because from state to state it really differs. Now, a lot of times when companies want to extract from your minerals from your property, they'll come up and want to pay you X amount of money for the rights to it. That means that they'll want to come in and dig in the ground and get the minerals out, extract the minerals, and make money. Now, in this type of transaction, or surface versus mineral, say if a company comes up and say, I want to pay you $100,000 for the coal beneath your property. This type of transaction has happened many times, and a simple fee owner may or may not have the interest or the ability to get the oil and gas or coal out as the company does. I mean, if I had a bunch of property and it was oil and gas under there, I may not have the money to get it out. So the coal company wants to produce the coal, but does not want to pay the additional price for the buildings and the surface. So they make an agreement, and the owner, I'll keep the rights to everything on the surface, but the coal company or the oil company has the rights to everything that's under it. Now, buying mineral rights, buying coal or oil and gas, it's not like you buy a car. When you buy a car, you just simply pay for the car and file a title transfer and then drive the car home. But when mineral rights are purchased, the buyer and all the future mineral rights owners will have the right to come on the property and extract minerals from it. And the seller and all future surface owners must live with that agreement. So if I have some property and I sell the mineral rights to it, the owners of the minerals can come in and they can come and dig or extract the minerals whenever they feel like it. Now, when mineral rights are purchased, the buyer and all future mineral right owners have to have a right to exploit or to get the minerals out of the property. And the seller and everybody that owns the surface after that is really nothing that you can do about it. You just have to let them get it. Mineral leases and royalties. A lease is an agreement. This is important. A lease is an agreement that gives the mining company the right to enter the property and conduct tests and determine if suitable minerals are there. They want to know if it's worth their time. They'll sign an agreement to come in and do tests, and they'll usually give a royalty payment when the minerals are produced from the property, and the owners usually pay a share of the production income, and this is a royalty payment. And the amount of royalty is specified in the lease agreement. It can be a fixed amount or it can be a percentage. Now, most oil companies or leasing companies, they'll come in and they'll give the property owners a lump sum at first with the contingency that they'll find something. If they find something, then they'll go ahead. But if they don't find anything, the only thing they owe the owner is what they gave them up front. They usually do that to kind of bait them in, to get them. I mean, if I'm sitting at the house and got bills to pay and somebody say, okay, I'll give you $50,000, you let me come and see if oil or gas on your property. If I find some, I'll give you more money. That's a pretty sweet deal for most people, so most of them do take it. Oil and gas rights. Mineral rights also include rights to oil and gas, natural gas, any type of mineral or commodity that they can get out of the ground to be sold to other people. And like I said before, to get the property owner to do it or commit to the lease, they usually offer them a payment or like a signing bonus and upfront payments. And so that'll give them rights to go in. And if the person or the company doesn't come in and explore or doesn't find any oil or gas that they want to get, then the lease will expire and then they can't come back. They'll usually sign, maybe a year or whatever. If they hadn't come and done anything in a year or find something else they rather explore or run out of money or do something else, then after that time the lease will be null and void. Now, yeah, we talked about that. Let's see what else. Next slide. Here we go. Oil and gas unitization and pooling. What this is below the surface, oil and gas has the ability, to move through the rock. And when it travels through the tiny pores or spaces between the rocks, the pores between grains of sand or through openings or fractures, this oil can go from one owner's property to another. So if your neighbor is drilling a well and they're getting a bunch of oil and gas out, it's probably to your advantage to go ahead and get somebody to drill a well on your property so that they won't, basically with the pressure under the ground, they may end up draining all the oil and gas off of your property. Now, I know that sounds kind of far-fetched, but yeah, it can happen. So it's called, they travel through tiny pores. The oil and gas travel through tiny pores and spaces, and this mobility allows a well to drain oil and gas from other people's land. So you might want to, if your neighbor is getting oil and gas out the ground, you might want to get a well drilled on yours too. Mineral rights negotiation. Let me tell you this this short story. There's two men were at a hardware store and walk in, and this guy asked, "Have you sold your mineral rights yet?" And then the guy said no. He said, "Well, I'll pay you $500 an acre for them, and then I'll write you a check this morning." One man grabbed the check and ran straight to the bar, and the other man grabbed the contract and ran straight to his attorney. One of these men had 1,000,000 friends that night, and the other had $1 million in the bank. Now, three things are required to make a successful mineral rights deal. For one, you have to have knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, then you need to get an attorney. You need to have skill in negotiating. If you don't have skill in negotiating, you need to find an attorney. And another thing you need to have is patience, because if you get into a deal too quick, you can lose a lot of money. If you don't have all three of these things, knowledge, skill, and patience, then find you an attorney. So in other words, the best thing to do when you have mineral rights on your property and you get approached is to find you a good attorney. A lot of times they'll take it on contingencies because they know that you may be potentially worth a lot of money. So, all right, let's see the next one. There's more to a good contract than money. That's for sure, because a lot of times you got to think about the different guidelines for your buildings, your roads, your livestock, your crops. If you have a cornfield and it's been in your family for a long time, well, if you sign a lease, they may say they want it to clear it out within 2,000 feet of their oil well, so they can get rid of your crops. Or they may have in the lease that you can't have any cows there because they may damage the equipment. You have to worry about or think about those things. That's why you have to really get professional advice. If the owner signs without getting professional advice, the rights can be conveyed to the leasee, or and might be greater than the owner wants to give away. So, and then also there may be some clauses in there to where they may, the leasing company or the big company may sell it to somebody else and they come in and do a bunch of things. So you have to be careful of those things. Disagreements during extraction. Well, one way to avoid disagreements is to make sure that you have a good lease. And when purchasing surface rights, it's a good idea to carefully examine the wording of any mineral rights agreement that's applied to the property. Say if you're buying a field, an old oil field, nobody's working on it or anything, and you buy that to put your nice house on there. Well, the people that own the mineral rights may have a lease agreement that says that nobody can put a house on this property within X amount of feet, or that's why a lot of things, as far as this goes, unless you're going to be a lawyer or you're dealing with this type of thing, this is a very specialized area in the oil and gas industry. And when purchasing surfaces, you have to make sure you know what's going on with the minerals. When you buy a property, you buy both its assets and its liabilities. So if it's saying that for the next 100 years nobody can farm this land, or for the next 20 years you can't put any cows on there, that kind of thing, or you have to make sure you pay half of your royalties to something else, whatever the agreement is, that's what it is. And so you have to make sure that you get it all clear, because a lot of disagreements come during extraction. Delayed damage to the surface. Damage to the surface can be delayed, and the owner of a simple fee estate should consider these facts before entering into a mineral rights sale or lease agreement. And the consequences of mineral extraction will be passed on to the heirs and all the owners of the property after that. And it's not uncommon for undetermined properties to show sign of damage years later. I mean, if they extract the oil and the gas out of the ground, it's gonna leave an empty space if they don't pump some water or something in it. So years later, you could have a big sinkhole out there. And so you don't, you want to make sure that any cracks start or your house starts to sink long after that company is gone. After the oil and the gas is gone, the company is going to leave. But you want to make sure that you're covered. A lot of houses in those areas use wells to supply their water and to water crops and things like that. And you want to make sure that if the company comes in and then your water supply is damaged, then you have some recourse against that. State laws always apply. State laws. Most states have laws that regulate mining and drilling activity. I know Texas is kind of loose with theirs. That's where we are in Texas. That's kind of loose with theirs. They don't regulate as tight as a lot of other places do. The laws are meant to protect the environment and all the people that's involved in the property transaction. And these laws are the only protection available to the buyers or the sellers on issues that are not specifically addressed in the transaction. So even if it's not in the contract, a lot of states have their own laws that even if it's not in the contract, the company and the owner has to follow. Each transaction is unique and should be carefully considered before any permanent agreement is made. I hope that kind of clears some things up as far as mineral rights and surface rights. That's it in a nutshell. Some of this will be on your next test, so just go over these and listen to this, and it may help you out. I hope that it did anyway. Y'all have a good one. We'll talk to you later. Bye.